Hi guys, welcome to this short tutorial, 10 tips to effective reporting. As you are well aware, every time we undertake monitoring and evaluation interventions, you need to come up with a report, a very good report. So this presentation is going to show you some of the best tips that will make you come up with the best report that anyone, including your donors, will enjoy. I'm your host, Coach Alexander. Let's get started with it, shall we? Okay, so first of all, what is reporting? Well, it means to convey some information to others. That's all that it means. And this is done for various reasons. And most of the time, it brings out the best in an organization. It showcases what an organization is doing, especially to donors and to other stakeholders, because those are the ones who are mainly interested to see a comprehensive report that covers all aspects of a subject matter. Reporting is especially important in monitoring and evaluation. You cannot say you're doing M&D activities if you're not generating reports, because that is where all the information comes out. And that's why the M&D unit is one of the most important aspects in any organization. So let's go to the tips. So the first tip I would like to talk about is following the instructions for an effective report, okay? There are universal instructions which you'll find all over the internet, even when you're doing your thesis. There are those guidelines that tell you how to write a good report. But sometimes organizations want to contextualize this to their own setting. So they may have their own requirements that must be followed by anyone who does a reporting to stakeholders. So we're talking here about the spacing, about font size, about number of pages that define what an M&D report is. So you need to follow those things. So if the spacing is 1, stick to 1. If it's 1.5, stick to 1.5. If the font size is, let's say, 10, 11, stick to that. So you need to stick to the instructions so that you don't get shut down once you submit your report. The second tip is to use the standard format for an effective report. All right. Usually, if you look at most of the reports all over the world, and we're not just talking about M&D, even research and other things, it's standard practice to have a cover page. It's standard practice to have table of contents, introduction, objectives, findings, discussion, and your conclusion. That is just standard practice. Sometimes you can do away with one or two things. Like, let's say, I've seen reports where the discussion is removed, but it's always good to have these things, especially the findings. That is crucial. Tip 3, ensure that your report is free from errors by proofreading. Sometimes, because we want to beat a deadline, we tend to forget that it's important to proofread our reports. And in the process, when we submit that report to the readers, they find a lot of errors. And it can be quite embarrassing when they have to give you feedback on spellings, on things that are going to just make you seem like you really didn't go through your report. So always remember to go through your report to check for grammatical errors, spellings, and also reporting errors in the findings. Tip number 4, report on findings that are only related to the log frame or strategic plan. This is very, very, very important. You know, there are times, even with, especially I've seen this when you employ a consultant to do an evaluation for your organization, because of their past experience, they want to bring it into the report, and they'll feel that some of the findings they're bringing out is what the organization is looking for. But yet there's a strategic plan, there is a log frame. So it's important whenever you're doing M&D activities, make sure that you're only reporting on things that are relevant, on things that the strategic plan or log frame are trying to answer in the project. Because if you divert from that, then people will question what really were you doing all this time when doing M&A activities. Tip number 5, report on findings by using graphical representation. You know what makes a good report? You know, it's when you have when your presentation is to the point, such as like if you are presenting findings, you can use graphs, you can use pie charts, you can use bar charts. Make it easy for the audience, the readers, to understand what it is you're reporting, and that way they'll really grasp what you're saying and they'll fully appreciate your report. Okay, we've got 5 more to go. Tip number 6, your conclusion should always answer the objective of the report. I've seen that a lot of times, if you're like, for example, if your objective is to determine how many people earn $5,000 per month, in the conclusion, that should be clearly outlined. Okay, so in the conclusion, you mentioned perhaps that in conclusion, this number of people earn $5,000 per month, disaggregated by male and female. You see, so you have to be straight to the point. It has to answer the objective. So I've seen that many other times in most of the reports I've seen, especially by the consultants, their conclusion will be very lengthy, it won't be brief, and most of all, you won't see the link to the objective. So it's very important you check for that so that even when you report to your backdoor donors, you're able to give them a concise conclusion. Tip number 7, provide constructive recommendations. So there are two types of M&D activities. You've got those routine activities, and then you've got those maybe one-off activities like the evaluations. But when it comes to routine activities, where you do quarterly monitoring of activities, it's always good to provide recommendations because those recommendations are going to help improve the implementation of activities for the project. So if there's something that is off key that you've observed in the field that is negatively affecting implementation of activities, always ensure that that comes out in your recommendations. Tip number 8, ask for comments on your report and work on each and every comment. This is very, 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 very important. You know what I do sometimes? I'll come up with a first draft report. Whenever I'm doing an M&D report, I'll come up with a first draft report, submit that report to the readers. It could be the manager, it could be someone who's contracted me for a consultancy. I'll submit that to them. And I'll make sure that I even emphasize to them, put all your comments. And when the report comes back, I address each and every comment. You know why that is important? Because when you allow them to comment, you are meeting their expectations. That is what is key. Especially if you're a consultant, you want to get the job done early and get paid as soon as possible. Make sure that everyone who's supposed to comment on your report comments. If you're an M&D officer, make sure that your manager or supervisor comments on the report and address each and every comment. Advise your supervisor to put the comments in track changes so that you address each of those comments. And then the 9th tip, be analytical by reporting numbers in relation to baseline data. Okay, so what this means is that, again, we get back to the log frame or strategic plan. Make sure that that strategic plan and log frame has baseline data so that when you collect data, let's say you have baseline data for 2010 and then you do some monitoring activities in 2020. Of course, the gap is too wide, but in reality, it's not really like that. But just for example's sake, you do it in 2020. So whatever you report, compare it to the baseline data so that people can be able to gauge the progress. And lastly, start writing the report early so that you don't panic when the deadline for submission arrives. So make sure that whenever you submit your report because let's say the deadline has a fixed date, just make sure that you start writing the report early, because the more you wait to commence writing the report, when the deadline fast approaches, you start to panic, and then there'll be errors that you make. So this has been the short presentation, guys, and I hope you enjoyed all the tips. Please ensure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so yet. I've been your host, Coach Alexander. See you on the other side. Bye.